Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to this week's session of Slice of Life Sciences. Today will be a fun conversation. I have gotten to know Bernardo. Saying the last name just made me trip up on the first name. Bernardo Cervantes, who I've gotten to know him for close to a year now. And just to give you a little bit of background on him, but we'll dive much more into it. He has a PhD from MIT in microbiology, microbiome, and synthetic biology, I believe. After that, jumped immediately into becoming a co-founder, which previous entrepreneurs we've had on the show, that wasn't the case. So interested to hear how this came about. And Concerto Biosciences is the company he co-founded, less than 2 years old. I'll let him talk about what they do. And we'll dive a lot more into Bernardo's responsibilities, what it's like helping run a early stage, fast-paced, growing company. So Bernardo, thank you very much for taking the time to chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. So we're excited to hear your story, career shaping experiences, learn a little bit about your background. So whenever we've had the privilege of speaking with co-founders on this show, I find that a lot of listeners like to hear about where you're from and kind of kick things off from the beginning. So I thought we'd start with a couple questions about who you are and how you came to be. So where'd you grow up? Did you have any people, events early on in your life that kind of shaped the interests that you wanted to pursue later on?
Yeah, I grew up in Mexico, in Tijuana, Mexico, to be more specific. So I wanted to be a football soccer player, as you might imagine. And when that dream died, eventually,
They didn't make the World Cup this year.
Mexico? Did they not?
Did they? Maybe I'm wrong. I guess they did.
Oh.
My facts are completely wrong. I saw them.
I should check. I know this happened recently, but I have not been paying as much attention as I should. So yeah, when that dream died, as it does around 12 or 13 years old, I think my parents sat me down and had that typical conversation of, hey, you can be whatever you want to be. But what was super key, at least for me, is that they backed up those words with actual support. Like, they've been incredibly supportive. So when I eventually changed my mind from going to medical school in Mexico and instead decided to go to community college in the U.S., they didn't bat an eye. They just said, sure, how can we help? And I guess since then it's been a lot of me trying to find people that are willing to be that kind of supportive, that are willing to just say, sure, that's what you want to do, go for it, how can I help? And me trying to grow enough to be that kind of support for other people as well. So it's now I keep a PowerPoint. You were asking about people and events, and now I keep a PowerPoint slide that I call it my wall of fame, and it's just all of the people that have said yes when they could have said no, that have, especially those that said yes when it would have been easier for them to say no. That gave me an opportunity to grow a little bit. So it's been a lot of people and a lot of random little events from community college to now. So it's hard to pick one and highlight it.
Well, the PowerPoint, I'm sure, has been growing, so that's good to hear. Did you know, going into college, what you wanted to study, let alone do after college, or was that shaped during your years and during your studies?
Yeah. So when I went to community college, I didn't. I knew that I liked medicine and biology and chemistry, and I knew that I enjoyed fixing things with my hands. So putting those together roughly created the notion that biomedical engineering was a thing, and that I could maybe go after that. But I had no clue that engineering microbes and that genetic engineering of bacteria was a thing. I didn't understand that concept at all. That I learned deep into the college experience. So I guess I've been learning what I like to do as I do it. And back in community college, I was still thinking about medical school in the U.S. instead of Mexico, which I'm very glad that I didn't do that. That would have been painful in many different ways.
Did you graduate from that community college and go somewhere else after? What was the next step?
Yeah, so I did. I finished high school in Mexico, went 3 years to community college in near LA, and then I transferred to UC Berkeley to finish my undergrad. Okay. And then I worked at UC Berkeley for about a year and a half as a laboratory assistant, and then came to MIT for grad school. The entirety of which was driving me more and more towards understanding how bacteria work and how they do really cool, interesting things by themselves, and how we can ask them to do really cool and interesting things. Which is, I guess, eventually what the company is now focused on.
Yeah. Did you, I guess, at your time at MIT, did you have certain mentors, or I guess obviously you mentioned the Wall of Fame. Yeah. Were there certain people that kind of guided you into a specific field and a specific set of projects and publications to start focusing your time on?
I knew, so when I started grad school, I was still considering the academic life, right? You do a PhD, and then you do a postdoc, and then you go and become a professor, and you follow that life. And pretty early on, I realized that was a path that would be hard for me to follow. I think I thought I would enjoy being a professor, and I thought I would be good at being a professor, maybe, but getting to being a professor was really hard. And so, like, I ended up having mentors and people that were like showing me all of this other different paths. Most of my undergraduate mentors ended up working at companies or starting companies themselves. They a lot of the people around me, and especially in the Boston area, there's a ton of people, trying to figure out how to take biotechnology and create a bioeconomy out of it. So for a while, I've been seeing more and more people see the benefits of biotechnology and try to convert them into actual products, and try to take them out of academia and convert them into a new economic power. And so as I saw more and more of that, it was like, okay, grad school for me needs to be something that positions me to either join a company, or if whatever grad school ends up being, maybe I can start a company myself. So pretty early on, it was all right. The academic path is not there for me. I don't think I'm gonna enjoy it, but maybe there is a new way or a different way to impact people by bringing biotech out of academia and behind the paywall of academic papers. And
yeah, and you did not join like a large pharmaceutical company or anything like that right after your studies, right? You started Concerto. So I guess to dive into that, how did you meet your co-founders? What was the motivate, or I guess just the overall genesis of the founding?
Yeah,
I'm sure it's fascinating.
Yeah. So the company is called Concerto Biosciences, and I actually joined a team of co-founders that had already sort of nucleated, and this is a play on words, because there's a program out there called Nucleate, which is extremely good at helping small new teams start companies. And so two of my co-founders had joined um, the Harvard Nucleate program to think about maybe starting a company, um, while I was separately in my PhD thinking, how can I start a business? Like, how can I how can I use my knowledge and turn it into a company in some way? And so they reached out to me and asked me, hey, we have this idea. Uh, we think you might be a good fit for our team. Are you interested? And it was for me, it was a fantastic click, as it's sort of excuse me, sort of like you've been thinking about something for years and years, and suddenly you start talking to someone else that has the exact same concepts and ideas. It's like, oh my god, and suddenly there's a team, and they have much better, they've worked on this for a while, and they've thought it through with each other, so they have much better ideas than what I thought. So it was super exciting, super interesting. This was April/May of 2019. So it was a full year and a half before we actually spun out the company out of academia.
And for, I guess in simple terms, what does Concerto do?
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess more granularly, what's the problem your team's solving? The perfect match team is, as you framed it up.
Yeah. So Concerto Biosciences, we discover healthy and useful bacteria. So we know that there's bacteria everywhere. They are on the table that you're resting your arms on right now. They're absolutely in the environment around you, and we actually know that most of them are good for us. Some of them are very bad, but most of them are good, and in some cases, some of them are more than good. They actually like actively solve problems for us. So what Concerto does is we discover the bacteria that are capable of solving problems for us, so that we can then make sure that we keep them around and that we don't eradicate them. The problem, there's sort of two problems. One is that we have a mentality of killing 99.99% of bacteria whenever we can. The notion of a clean surface is one that has no bacteria at all, and so that is one mentality that we need to rethink towards. Is there a better version of this? Is there a version where instead of a surface clean by removing 99.99% of bacteria, can we instead populate it with the good kind of bacteria, the bacteria that will help us? That is one problem. That is more of a societal problem. On the science side, the problem is that there's too many bacteria out there, so it is hard to know which ones are the good ones and which ones are the ones solving a problem. And beyond that, they like to work in teams. So you can't just, if you have a list of 1,000, you can't just test the 1,000 of them to see which ones are the good ones. You actually have to test 2 combined with 3 combined with 247 and see, does that work? So then it explodes into, you actually need to run millions and millions of tests. And that is what Concerto is extremely good at. We use a technology developed by one of my co-founders at MIT called K-chip. And we can very quickly scan through the millions and millions of combinations of bacteria to see which ones are useful, which ones can solve interesting problems for us.
I was going to say that sounds overwhelming. So the technology must be quite impressive. What applications, or what are you targeting for your therapeutic areas, or at least now and then potentially down the road?
We started by pointing the technology at atopic dermatitis, more specifically at the role that Staph aureus, which is a pathogen that tends to be quite problematic for some people, plays in atopic dermatitis. So we were looking for a combination of bacteria that can control Staph aureus, and more specifically control its virulence, its ability to secrete toxins and to really mess with the skin. We started that when we started the company in the summer of 2020. Right in the middle of the pandemic, when things are particularly easy to do. So we worked on that for about a year, and now we have a combination of 3 strains of bacteria that are surprisingly good at controlling Staph aureus, and we're thinking about how we can turn this now into a product that can be tested to see if it actually works with humans. Now that we've sort of like shown this one example that is going extremely well, now we're looking at a bunch of other applications. And the cool thing for us is that it doesn't the end application doesn't change the way that we do the work. To us, it all looks the same. To us, it all looks like, hey, here's a list of strains of bacteria. Can we find something that does X? So it doesn't matter if it's in agriculture, it doesn't matter if it's in consumer products or in other human health applications. The core technology works the same every time. So we're super excited to try it in as many things as we can. So we're looking to find basically other companies that are interested in microbial combinations and generally in studying microbiology in the combinatorial space, to partner with them and to so that we're not just keeping this technology to ourselves, so that we can use it for as many problems as possible.
What's your, having heard how you joined Concerto, I guess has your day-to-day job roles shifted? I imagine it's a fast growing company, you're doing a ton of different things, but what is your role within the company now, at least?
So yeah, my role right now is to develop our strategy to take that first combination of bacteria, the anti-staph bacteria, and figure out how we're going to take it from the discovery in the lab into actually testing it in humans. And so it's mostly a strategy development role. That being said, our team is 7 people. So I wear all kinds of different hats that include, I am often in the lab running still some discovery experiments. I deliver the mail. That's one of my various roles, for example. So on any given day, I either spend the entire day in the lab, or I spend the entire day meeting with people around the world that have developed bacterial products in the past to learn how they do it, and to see if I can figure out how to do it myself, how to do it within Concerto. So I think my favorite days are the ones that have like a little bit of everything, where like I go into the lab and I also meet with my co-founders to talk with an investor, and then I go and talk to another company that is doing something similar to us, and so like it fulfills all of the different roles in a single day. And at the end of the day, I truly feel like I started a company.
Well, and it must be nice, because the day must fly by when you're doing totally different functions every 2 hours or so. So as you look back on the past couple of years, or close to a couple of years, out of curiosity, what are the biggest challenges for a team of 7 at the moment? Did you expect those challenges? And then I guess just for those that don't know, your team's been in the news recently, so just sharing any notable successes recently, which I'm sure people would love to hear about.
Yeah. Challenges. There are different challenges all the time, and they're mostly unexpected. So that's probably the most challenging part of them. I think so. The hardest thing is getting very good at answering the question, should I do it? Should I hire someone full-time to do it? Or should I pay someone part-time to do it? That is absolutely the hardest question. And it's the hardest question because it happens with absolutely everything. It doesn't matter. And at the beginning, you don't have the capital to hire just random people to do X, Y, and Z. So you end
Yeah.
up learning how to do random HR things that, as a scientist, you are not particularly interested in, maybe. Um, and or learning how to read legal contracts, and we have fantastic legal help, but sometimes you just end up having to read this random stuff that it's just not what you want to be in the lab. You want to be solving the science as a scientist. That's what you're excited about at the beginning, anyways. So I think that's the hardest thing to develop a good strategy for yourself and for your team, so that question can get answered quickly. And all of the budgeting implications that comes with it, of course. So I would say that's the biggest challenge. Successes, we have a candidate lead for a new product that we're super excited about, and we I think I love asking anyone that is looking to join Concerto as a team, what's their definition of success, because every single person has a different definition of success, right? And I often, by asking that question, I end up getting the question asked back, and
I was about to ask it right back to you.
And I think the bigger the circle of people that is positively influenced, the more success. And if we manage to put out a product out there that helps people with eczema, then that would be the biggest success. So we have a lead candidate that we want to advance to see if it actually will work in humans.
Awesome.
And we've been securing the necessary funding to do that, so it's super exciting. We have the team is growing. We have many job descriptions out there. If anyone is interested, please check it out. And we'll be moving to a new lab space, growing to a lab space that is about 10 times the size of our current lab space. So it's very exciting. Very, very exciting.
How has that's obviously all super exciting. How has I guess have you and the founding team kind of established a culture that you're planning on keeping throughout? Obviously, with all the job postings and everything, you'll be growing a lot. So is that an important piece for you and the team?
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of the very early conversations that we had as a co-founding team. It was, what are we gonna stand for, right? What are our company values? And usually you think, oh, company values, it's some third or fourth link in the website, and nobody looks at it. It doesn't matter a lot, but at least to us it matters a ton. It's actually the second most referenced thing that people tell us when they tell us that they want to join Concerto. The first one is, oh, the science is super cool, and the second one is always your core values are very well thought out, and it always puts a smile on us because we thought about it a lot. We care about our team and how it interact, like how each piece interacts with each other, and so it is important that everyone that joins us reads our core values, and reads. Every time you pick up a core value, you let some things down, right? You cannot claim that you will grow by experimentation, and also be like absolutely perfect in everything that you do, right? So you need to pick something up and put something down, and we put a lot of effort into that, so we're excited about it, and we're hoping that everyone that joins Concerto is also excited about those.
Out of curiosity, how did the name Concerto come about?
That's a good question. So we went through so many names. I am in the process of moving apartments right now, and I found a notebook from like a couple of years ago, and it has just like lists and lists of different names. At some point, we just hit on the theme of music, and one of our co-founders, Jared, is a gifted pianist, so that resonated a lot with him. And a concerto usually has a central figure accompanied by an orchestra, and in microbial ecology, which is where we operate, that tends to be true. It happens a lot where there's a keystone species that is supported by an orchestra, like a microbiome. So that hit us. That made a lot of sense to us.
Oh.
And from then, a lot of little jokes started to spin out. So our first product is called Ensemble Number 2, and it's Ensemble Number 2 because our most important ensemble is our team. So our team is called Ensemble Number 1, and we our happy hours are called jam sessions. It's permeated our entire culture now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I guess we're running up on time, but I like to ask every entrepreneur this question, and it's a very probably common question to ask, but I know a lot of listeners appreciate it. Just, I guess, what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give to an entrepreneur in your shoes at the stage in your life that you were when you kind of decided to go down this road and do what you're doing now?
Yeah, I would. So early on, we received this piece of advice of creating a moldy jar of people that give you advice, and the idea is that as you're trying to do something new, as you're trying to build a new company, there are a lot of very experienced people that know a lot of things, but they won't necessarily know what you are working on, because what you're working on is new, but by definition is new and different, right? So the advice is often very, very standard. You need to do things this way, and then this way, and then this way, and that is extremely useful advice, but you need to take it with a grain of salt, because what you're doing is fundamentally different. So we call it the moldy jar, where we keep all of this people that give us that kind of advice, and every once in a while you open the moldy jar and you hear it needs to be done this other way, it needs to be done that other way, and then you close it and you put it away for a second and you think about it, and then you're like, all right, they're right, or in this particular case, I think they're wrong, and I'm gonna go my own way. So it's a long-winded answer to say, everyone will give you advice, and ultimately you're gonna have to know best. So take it all, take all of the advice and be careful with it.
Well, thank you so much, Bernardo. It's been great chatting with you, and I very much look forward to continuing to hear about the successes you and your team have. So excited to keep my eye out in the news as well as everyone else. So thank you very much. It means a lot.
Thank you for having me.